Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a topic that, well, it touches pretty much everyone, building thriving communities.
It's definitely complex and it's vital.
Yeah,
And the source material we have today gives us a really specific, kind of data-driven way into it.
absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're unpacking a briefing paper. It's from Martin Sloan International and MSI Global Campus.
Right. Published June 2025, and the author is John Martin.
And this paper, it leans really heavily on some significant research, especially the groundbreaking work by Dr. Raj Chetty and his team.
Yeah, their work is central here. So our mission today basically is to dig into this paper, understand the big obstacles stopping communities from really becoming sustainable.
And then, crucially, explore this powerful asset the paper highlights for revitalization, something maybe often overlooked: entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
And, right from the start, the paper shares this finding from Chetty's work that's, well, it's kind of astonishing, actually. It points out that the actual neighborhoods children grow up in, they can significantly shape their whole future.
Yeah, things like how much they earn, whether they go to college.
Even marriage patterns down the line, it's quite something.
And that specific research, I mean, they looked at over 7 million families who move between different areas. It just hammers home how profound, how long-lasting these effects of childhood exposure are.
On something as fundamental as, well, moving up the ladder economically across generations, intergenerational mobility.
Exactly. It's not just theory. It's rooted, like, deep in the environment you experience growing up.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The paper kicks off by framing the core challenge. How do you actually develop and then maintain sustainable communities?
Right. Whether it's a tiny rural town or, a neighborhood in a big city or even a whole county.
And it uses this historical case study, which I found interesting, a specific rural county that actually was thriving back in the 50s and 60s.
Right. And back then it was mostly characterized by locally owned businesses run by entrepreneurs.
But then things changed. The economy shifted, moving away from agriculture, logging.
More towards retail and textiles. And the key thing, the number of local entrepreneurs started to drop.
Yeah, and over time, economic struggles started creeping in, made worse by things like textile jobs moving overseas, offshoring.
And there's this critical metric the paper uses to show the decline. One I find, well, pretty stark. It's the community's dollar turnover rate.
Okay, explain that a bit. Dollar turnover rate.
Think of it like this. How many times does a dollar, once it comes into the community, circulate within the local economy before it just leaves?
Got it. So how many local hands does it pass through?
Precisely. And in that case, steady community today, after all those decades of decline,
What's the number?
the paper says it's roughly zero point 0.4.
0.4. Wow, let's sit with that for a second.
Yeah, because zero point 0.4 means for every single dollar earned by someone living there, 60 cents, 60% leaves immediately.
Without supporting any local shop, local job, anything.
Nothing. And for a community to be considered, properly sustainable, the usual benchmark is that each dollar should circulate at least twice before it exits.
So a turnover rate of 2.0 or higher.
Right. A rate of zero point 0.4 isn't just low. It's like a sign the economy is just bleeding resources.
Okay, so that paints a pretty clear picture of decline. Before getting to solutions, the paper then looks at the research on what stops sustainability.
Yes, and this is where Dr. Raj Chetty's work really comes into focus, especially his research on how class impacts economic mobility.
His work is massive, isn't it? Drawing on data from, was it 57 million children?
Yeah, born between 78 and 92. It gives incredibly strong evidence linking someone's socioeconomic background to their future economic success. It puts real numbers on how environment shapes mobility.
And his study pinpointed, I think, 4 specific factors that really move the needle on mobility, especially for kids from disadvantaged backgrounds when they get exposed to more affluent environments.
That's right. So, first, there's the clear earnings gap by class. In their data, kids from high-income families saw earnings go up over time.
In low-income families.
Their earnings actually went down.
Ooh, okay, what's second?
Second, the environment itself. Just the general income level of the community. Outcomes improved for kids who grew up where the overall community income increased. Makes sense.
Okay, and the third one, this is where it gets maybe a bit surprising, right? About social interaction.
Absolutely. This was fascinating. Chetty's findings show that youth outcomes are most strongly related to the socioeconomic status of their peers.
Not just the place, but the people.
Exactly. Who you hang out with, who you interact with regularly. That social environment seems incredibly powerful.
Wow, okay, that is powerful. It's about who's around you. And the fourth factor.
Community-driven change. Simply exposing young people to higher income environments has this kind of ripple effect,
Mm.
directly boosting generational economic mobility.
So it really sounds like uh, creating environments like intentionally where people from different economic backgrounds can actually interact, build relationships. That's fundamental.
Totally. The paper uses this analogy like aspiring athletes improve way faster when they train consistently with elite athletes.
Right. Exposure to higher standards, different ways of thinking, different networks.
Yeah. Simply put, proximity to success, both economic and social, it really, really matters.
And if we tie this back, the paper is clear that economic gaps aren't just about money.
Not at all. They had education access, quality of schools, mental health, even how long you live.
Your ability to build wealth, career paths.
Even things like marital stability. These gaps are tangled up in all those social, environmental, community dynamics that Chetty's work brings out.
So, okay, if we want sustainable communities, we have to tackle the core barriers head on. The paper lists several key things holding struggling communities back.
Yeah, and they're depressingly familiar, often interconnected. Things like mental and behavioral health issues,
Crime and violence,
substance abuse, low wages, persistent unemployment.
homelessness, big educational gaps.
Right. And you can't just pick one off the list, can you? They all feed each other.
So the paper argues pretty strongly, I thought, that you need a coordinated, like multi-pronged attack.
Yes. Any real solution needs to hit multiple barriers at once. It needs to show a positive return on investment, hopefully use data-driven strategies.
Like using AI maybe to find priorities or measure impact.
Yeah, that's ideal. And crucially, it needs deep community buy-in. Residents, local groups, businesses, leaders, everyone involved to make sure it's relevant and people feel ownership.
Okay, which brings us naturally to the big question the paper asks. How do we create sustainable, if not thriving, communities?
And this is the pivot point. This is where it turns forcefully towards the role of entrepreneurship.
As this powerful, transformative force.
Exactly. It's presented not just as, starting a business, it's framed as a catalyst for social and environmental change, too.
So how does it make that case? It seems to combine Chetty's insights with something else.
Yeah, it brings together Chetty's work on environment, social networks, opportunity with the ideas of Gary Schoeninger on the entrepreneurial mindset.
Ah, the focus on problem solving, resilience, being proactive.
Right. And the paper argues that fostering that mindset, fostering entrepreneurship itself, is absolutely central to revitalization.
Because it's more than just jobs, right?
Much more. It gets local economies going again by keeping those dollars circulating. Remember the point 4?
Yeah.
It naturally builds new social connections, new networks. It injects innovation, fresh ideas.
And fundamentally, it equips people with skills, critical thinking, problem solving.
Exactly. And the paper doesn't just leave it there in the abstract. It proposes a very specific, tangible model, the Entrepreneur Innovation Hub.
The hub. Okay, what's the idea behind that?
So this hub acts as a kind of cornerstone. It's designed to leverage entrepreneurship through structured training, dedicated mentorship, and giving people direct access to essential resources.
Helping them launch and grow businesses that are actually rooted in their own community.
Right. But it's framed as way more than just a business incubator. It's described as culturally grounded, strategic, a living lab.
A living lab.
Yeah, a physical and social space where entrepreneurs from all sorts of different backgrounds and industries can come together, exchange ideas, solve problems together, spot new opportunities right there.
That collaborative part sounds key, very intentional.
Totally. So you've got experienced mentors giving guidance, you've got networking opportunities, building those social connections Chetty highlighted.
And access to practical stuff like legal help, marketing, financial planning.
All of that. The hub's mission, as the paper lays it out, is super broad. Empower people and places, build sustainable lives, and truly thriving communities.
A space for people to find their voice, unlock potential.
Yeah. And what I found particularly impactful is their explicit focus on who they aim to serve.
Who are they prioritizing?
They state they intentionally aim to engage folks often left out of traditional entrepreneurship support systems.
Like who?
Individuals who've been involved with the justice system, young people, women, veterans, families from low-income backgrounds.
That's a wide range.
And they actually put a number on it that at least 70% of the entrepreneurs they support will come from these communities.
70%. Wow.
And this is where that diversity piece becomes not just, nice to have, but strategically vital.
How so?
Well, bringing together entrepreneurs from across all these different social, cultural, economic backgrounds like the hub model wants to do it, doesn't just make things more equitable.
It makes the whole system stronger.
Exactly. It creates a far more vibrant, resilient, and innovative ecosystem. And it directly addresses Chetty's findings about the power of interacting with diverse peers.
Okay, so let's connect the dots. How does a model like this hub actually catalyze change in the wider community, according to the paper?
Right, it outlines a few key ways. First, obviously, increased dollar turnover.
Back to the point four problem.
Precisely. The hub directly attacks that by promoting local ownership, building local supply chains, encouraging people to use the local businesses created in the hub, explicitly aiming for that sustainable benchmark of 2 or more turnovers.
Makes sense. What's next?
Second, diversity of thought. When you bring together all these different lived experiences, different perspectives, different ways of solving problems.
You challenge the status quo.
Yeah, you challenge existing assumptions, and you inevitably get better, more innovative solutions that actually reflect what a broader range of people need.
Okay, third.
Third, cross-industry innovation. The hub intentionally mixes industries, tech, construction, healthcare, retail, arts, food, manufacturing, nonprofits, you name it.
So they're all bumping into each other.
Basically, yeah, creates these kinds of serendipitous creative collisions that just wouldn't happen if everyone was stuck in their own silo.
Sparking new ideas, new products, new services.
Totally new ventures sometimes. And fourth, leadership and mentorship development.
Ah, so the entrepreneurs themselves become community assets.
Yes. They're not just building companies, they're becoming leaders, mentors, role models. They start investing their knowledge, their experience, their success back into the whole ecosystem.
And there's a specific mentorship piece too, right? Something about different generations.
Yes, a really key component. Intergenerational mentorship is required. Resident entrepreneurs in the hub, they don't just focus on their own thing.
They have to mentor younger people.
They're required to mentor middle and high school students from the community, introducing them early to leadership, business basics, problem solving, community stewardship.
Which directly cultivates that entrepreneurial mindset in young people. Builds a pipeline of future innovators right there.
Exactly. And the intentional inclusion of diverse socioeconomic backgrounds in this mentoring that directly reflects Chetty's research.
Showing that exposure to peers, or mentors in this case, from higher income or more experienced backgrounds significantly boosts achievement and aspirations for disadvantaged youth.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's like the athlete analogy again. Disadvantaged students benefit immensely from exposure to and interaction with higher achieving or more experienced people. The hub model is designed to create exactly that kind of environment.
Making equity and diversity core to how it actually works, not just something they hope happens.
Right. Core operational tenets.
Okay, so let's try and boil this down. We've explored these really complex, interconnected problems holding communities back.
Yeah, looked at the profound impact of environment and social interaction on opportunity, mainly through Dr. Chetty's research.
And then we saw the paper's really compelling argument for entrepreneurship, especially through a structured, intentional model like the hub as this powerful engine for revitalization.
And the power really seems to be in that intentional design. The hub model prioritizes diversity, it builds in intergenerational mentorship, it actively fosters that entrepreneurial mindset.
Focused on real problem solving and resilience right within the community itself. So maybe for you listening, think about that dollar turnover rate. Does money stick around in your community? Or the idea that who you interact with matters, like proximity to success counts? How do those concepts feel where you live or work?
Yeah, how might they play out? And maybe one final thought to leave you with, a really provocative one. It comes from a postscript Dr. Chetty added to the paper.
Oh, what did he add?
Well, he noted that their latest findings, looking at what actually determines who becomes an entrepreneur in America, they suggest that exposure to entrepreneurship, just being around it at a community level.
Especially early in your career.
Right. That exposure might be just as important, maybe even more important than access to money, to financing, in determining who actually starts successful businesses.
Wow. More important than funding. That's huge.
It's a powerful finding.
So considering that, what could we actually unlock if we really prioritized creating widespread exposure to entrepreneurship in our communities?
Intentionally reaching young people, reaching those groups who've historically been shut out of these networks.
What would that even look like in practice, right where you are, something to think about?